There is a city in Connecticut that has more opinions per square mile about pizza than any other place on Earth. New Haven. Population 140,000. Home of Yale University. A city that produced three of the most argued about pizzerias in American history on a single street, invented the white clam pizza, and is the reason the word Apizza, pronounced Abitz, exists in the English language. New Haven. A small city. An outsized food identity. A single street that changed American pizza forever. 10 dishes this city doesn't just make, it owns. Frank Pepe was born in 1893 in Maiori, Italy, on the Amalfi Coast, the same coastline that produced the lemons for limoncello, the same coastline that looks out over the Tyrrhenian Sea toward Naples. He immigrated to New Haven in 1909, returned to Italy to fight in World War I, then came back to New Haven with his wife Philomena in 1920. He worked in a pasta factory, then in a bakery on Wooster Street. And then one day, he flattened some bread dough and put leftover ingredients on top of it, baked it in the coal-fired brick oven, and started selling it in the market. A pizza. A pizza. 10 cents a slice. He carried the pies on a special headdress walking through the Wooster Square Market. People bought them. People came back. By June 16, 1925, Frank Pepe had taken over the bakery and established Frank Pepe Pizzeria Napolitana at 163 Wooster Street. He was 32 years old. The pizza he made was specific. The coal-fired oven burns at 650 degrees Fahrenheit, but the coals can exceed 1,000 degrees. Wood ovens burn at 600 to 700. The difference is the character of the heat. Coal burns dry and intense, sealing the flavors into the crust and producing the signature char, the blackened spots on the crust's edge that are not burned mistakes, but intentional flavor. The dough is wetter than standard pizza dough, fermented longer, giving it a bubbly, airy, almost bread-like interior under a thin, crispy exterior that shatters when you fold it. The tomatoes come from a hand-picked field at the foothills of Mount Vesuvius in Naples, imported annually. The pecorino is hand-selected from Sardinia. The pizza that Frank Pepe built from these elements is not round. It is irregular, oval, oblong, shaped by hand, and launched into the oven without a pan. It is misshapen and charred and the best pizza in America. Multiple publications, in multiple years, have reached this conclusion. New Haven people accept this as correct. They have known it since 1925. Frank Pepe had no sons. In the early 1960s, he was ready to sell the business. His daughters Elizabeth and Serafina had other ideas. They asked their father for the business. He gave it to them. In the 1940s and 1950s, clams were a popular appetizer at New Haven seafood counters. Fresh local clams, steamed open, eaten at the bar. Someone at Pepe's. The story varies, but Frank Pepe himself is most commonly credited, in the 1960s, put clams on a pizza. The white clam pizza has no tomato sauce, no mozzarella. It has fresh little neck clams, shucked daily, laid directly on the dough with olive oil, garlic, oregano, and pecorino romano. Into the 1,000-degree coal oven. The clam juice releases as the clams cook and the heat concentrates it into the dough, creating a sauce from the clam itself. A white, oceanic, garlicky, intensely flavored pizza that has no real equivalent in any other pizza tradition. The clams for Pepe's white clam pizza are harvested from the Long Island Sound and the shores of Massachusetts. They are shucked every day by a longtime Pepe teammate. The freshness is not optional. The white clam pizza does not work with canned clams. The Long Island Sound is the ingredient. Frank Pepe's white clam pizza has been voted best in the country 3 years running. It has been called the most important pizza in America by food critics who have eaten pizza across multiple continents. It is a pizza without tomato, without mozzarella, without most of the things people associate with pizza. And it is better than almost any pizza made with all of those things. In 1938, a young man named Sal Concilio opened a pizza restaurant at 237 Wooster Street in New Haven. He had learned the pizza trade from his Uncle Frank. His Uncle Frank was Frank Pepe. The new restaurant was 74 addresses down the same street. The rivalry began immediately and has not stopped. Sally's a Pizza, always Sally's, never Sal's, became the counterweight to Pepe's on Wooster Street. The two pizzerias attracted different loyalties, different celebrities, different theories about whose crust was superior. Frank Sinatra famously was a Sally's man. Ronald Reagan preferred Pepe's. The argument that divided a crooner and a president has divided New Haven ever since. Sally's coal-fired oven runs at the same temperature as Pepe's. The dough is similar. The tomatoes are different. The cheese is different. The charring pattern is different. People who have eaten both in the same afternoon, a New Haven ritual known as the Wooster Street crawl, report that the differences are real and significant and impossible to fully articulate, which is precisely why the argument never ends. Sal Concilio died in 1989. His wife Flo, who met Sal when she was 13, married him young, and ran the front of house at Sally's for 50 years, became the face of the restaurant. Flo died in 2016. Her children and grandchildren run it now. The restaurant remained closed for a period and reopened in 2019 under a new ownership partnership that has kept the Concilio family involved. The oven is still there. The charred crust is still there. The argument with Pepe's is still there. In 1900, a man named Louis Lassen was running a lunch wagon in New Haven, selling steak sandwiches to workers in the downtown area. One day, the exact date is disputed but the approximate period is not, a customer came in and asked for something quick. He was in a hurry. Louis Lassen took a leftover beef patty, placed it between two slices of toast, and handed it to the man. Louis' lunch claims to have invented the hamburger. The Library of Congress agrees. The restaurant is still there at 261 Crown Street in New Haven, still serving hamburgers made from a blend of 5 cuts of ground beef, cooked in the original cast-iron vertical grills that Louis Lassen used in 1900. Grills that cook both sides of the patty simultaneously, from the sides, not from below. The burgers are served on white toast, not a bun. Toast. Ketchup is not offered. Ketchup is not permitted. The toppings are cheese, tomato, and onion. Nothing else. Texas and Wisconsin and Ohio and a dozen other places also claim the hamburger. The argument has been running since at least the 1970s. Louis's lunch has the Library of Congress behind it, the vertical grills from 1900, and a building that is itself a historic landmark, moved to Crown Street in 1975 when the original location was demolished, reassembled brick by brick. The steamed cheeseburger is the burger that people from Connecticut cannot explain and cannot stop eating. A steamed cheeseburger is prepared in a steam cabinet, a metal box with individual compartments into which raw ground beef is placed and cooked by steam rather than by fire, grill, or flat top. The beef cooks slowly and evenly in the steam, retaining all of its moisture, producing a patty that is extraordinarily tender and juicy in a way that grilled beef is not. The cheese, cheddar in most versions, melts in a separate compartment in the same steam cabinet, becoming a pure liquid cheese sauce that pours over the burger, rather than a melted slice laid on top. The combination produces a burger of a specific texture, soft, moist, cheese-saturated, that has no equivalent outside central Connecticut. The steamed cheeseburger was invented in the 1920s at Jack's Lunch in Middletown, Connecticut, 20 miles north of New Haven, and spread through the diners and lunch counters of central Connecticut over the following decades. Ted's restaurant in Meriden, Connecticut, has been making it since 1959 and is the most famous practitioner. The steamed cheeseburger is not available outside Connecticut in any meaningful form. Food critics who encounter it for the first time are usually skeptical. Steam is not glamorous, and glamour has been important to the American burger conversation. The neighborhood that produced Frank Pepe and Sally's Apizza is an Italian-American neighborhood that still functions as one. Wooster Street is lined not only with pizzerias but with Italian bakeries that have been producing cannoli, sfogliatelle, biscotti, and Italian pastries since the same generation of immigrants that brought the pizza. Libby's Italian pastry shop has been on Wooster Street since 1922, 3 years before Pepe opened his pizzeria. The cannoli at Libby's, fried shells filled to order with sweetened ricotta, have been made from the same recipe for over a century. The sfogliatelle, the ridged clamshell Neapolitan pastry, is made correctly, which means it shatters when you bite it, and the filling inside is exactly right. The pastry shops of Wooster Street exist in the same ecosystem as the pizzerias. Immigrant family businesses, century-old recipes, no particular interest in updating what works. You buy cannoli at Libby's after pizza at Pepe's or Sally's. This is the Wooster Street evening. It has been the Wooster Street evening since before most people currently living in New Haven were born. New Haven sits on the northern shore of Long Island Sound, the body of water that separates Connecticut from Long Island, New York, and that provides the seafood that goes into the white clam pizza, into the oyster bars along the waterfront, and into the seafood tradition that runs alongside the Italian-American food culture of the city. The oysters of Long Island Sound, specifically the Thimble Island oyster from the waters off the Connecticut coast, are among the best oysters on the East Coast. Cold, clean water, specific salinity, specific mineral content. The oyster reflects the sound it comes from. New Haven's waterfront restaurants serve them raw, on the half shell, with mignonette or simple lemon. The clam chowder at the waterfront establishments, New England style, cream-based with Long Island Sound clams, is the chowder of the water that is visible from the window. The same clams that go into Pepe's white clam pizza are the clams that go into the chowder at the waterfront restaurants. The Long Island Sound is the ingredient. It runs through the entire New Haven seafood tradition, from the clam pizza to the raw bar to the chowder, because New Haven sits at the water's edge and has been eating what the water provides since before the university was built. Yale University has been in New Haven since 1701. Its dining culture, the commons, the college dining halls, the specific food traditions that 13,000 students and faculty generate, has shaped the city's restaurant scene for 3 centuries. The university's residential college system creates 12 separate dining communities within a quarter mile of each other, each with its own atmosphere and food culture. The Yale dining halls have been rated consistently among the best university dining programs in the country. The student population that cycles through New Haven every 4 years generates demand for food at every price point, from the pizzerias of Wooster Street to the fine dining of Chapel Street, from the food trucks on the Green to the late-night diners near campus. The broader effect is a city that punches above its size in food because it has always had a captive, educated, opinionated audience with money and time to eat. The pizza obsession of New Haven is partly a city tradition and partly a university tradition. Generations of Yale students who arrived in New Haven, discovered Pepe's and Sally's, developed opinions about which was better, and carried those opinions for the rest of their lives. The Apizza argument has been circling the globe with Yale alumni since at least the 1940s. That is the Yale food contribution. Not a dish, but an audience that made New Haven's food famous everywhere its graduates went. The third point in the New Haven pizza triangle, the one that locals know and tourists often miss, is modern Apizza at 874 State Street, about a mile from Wooster Street. Modern Apizza opened in 1934 as Tony's Apizza, founded by Anthony Abate. It became modern in the mid-20th century. It has been making New Haven-style pizza for 90 years without being Pepe's or Sally's, which is a complicated position to occupy in a city where Pepe's and Sally's are the reference points. Modern's distinction is its pizza style, slightly thicker than Pepe's, oil-fired oven rather than coal. Modern switched from coke to oil around 1967 due to fuel availability, which produces a different char and a slightly different crust character. The Italian bomb, sausage, peppers, onions, mushrooms, bacon, and garlic, is Modern's signature. The clam pizza runs alongside Pepe's version as an alternative for people who want the clam experience without the Wooster Street line. Modern Apizza is the local's choice when the lines at Pepe's and Sally's are too long and the hunger is too immediate. It is also, on its own terms, one of the best pizzerias in Connecticut, which means it is one of the best in the country. In any other city, Modern would be the most famous pizza restaurant in town. In New Haven, it is the third most famous on its block. New Haven is a small city that has been making the best pizza in America for 100 years and is entirely comfortable with the fact that most of the country disputes this. Frank Pepe sold a pizza from a headdress in 1925. His nephew opened a competing pizzeria down the street in 1938. Frank Sinatra chose the nephew. Ronald Reagan chose the uncle. The argument has not been resolved. It will not be resolved. In New Haven, the argument is the point. The city's relationship to its own pizza is the most sustained local food debate in America, and the food that sustains the debate has been worth debating for a century. The white clam pizza has no tomato, no mozzarella. It is better than almost any pizza made with both. The steamed cheeseburger is cooked in a box of steam and produces a burger that Connecticut cannot explain to the rest of the country and does not particularly need to. Louis Lunch has been making the same hamburger on the same vertical grills since 1900 and does not permit ketchup. Not every city has a pizza rivalry that divided a crooner and a president. Not every city's most famous food has been called the best in the country for a century by critics who keep coming back to make sure. Not every city invented a burger that required the Library of Congress to weigh in on. New Haven does things its own way. Has since Frank Pepe walked through the Wooster Square market with pies balanced on his head, and 10 cents was enough to find out what New Haven pizza tasted like.